We send greetings on International Women's Day to all women workers and women in general, and we wish them success in their fight for their rights. The Steering Committee for the new Federation is pleased to announce that the founding Congress of the new Independent, Democratic and Campaigning Trade Union Federation has been shifted to the 21st to 23rd April 2017 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center in Boksburg. This shifting was necessitated by the objective challenges on the part of two unions, FAO and NUMSA. Workers who have suffered years of mass unemployment, deepening poverty and widening inequality will be mobilizing to liberate themselves and show in practice that there is and there are alternative ways to represent their interest and free themselves from the shackles of exploitation by a rich capitalist elite. The Congress will be attended by 1,800 delegates from 21 unions representing 684,865 members. 17 other unions who have not obtained a mandate to form part of the new federation, but who have actively participated in the process to form it, will be invited to send 2 non-voting delegates as observers, and other unions will be invited, including our friends in Fedusa and Nagdu. Formations of the unemployed, the informal sector, the civil society, youth, students, the fees must fall, the outsourcing must fall, all of them have been invited. The steering committee has drafted a report to the Congress and has adopted the theme as building worker unity for working class power in every workplace and community. Whereas only the Congress itself can finally decide on the issues to be discussed, in the meantime, all unions are to immediately finalize their consultation with members on the questions of leadership, the constitution, logo, colors, and name of the federation so that we develop a consensus. A special meeting of the steering committee to be attended by the presidents and general secretaries will sign off on all these issues in order to establish a consensus on these issues. Unions will be allowed to submit draft resolutions to the Congress, and accordingly a resolutions committee is being established to receive and to do composite resolutions. The steering committee report to the Congress has been circulated already in a draft and will be used to formulate resolutions where applicable. We also have been discussing the nuclear deal, and that the steering committee welcomed a presentation made by Comrade Jay Naidu on the planned nuclear power deal. It agreed that the imposition of the nuclear deal, which the country does not need and cannot afford, cannot be discussed outside the deepening political crisis in the country, which includes an aggressive program to capture key institutions of the state for self-enrichment. The Council for Social, Industrial and Scientific Research, or CSIR, which is a major research institution mainly funded by the government, has told the government that firstly, there is no shortage of energy in the country, and secondly, that nuclear is by far a much more expensive option, even if there was an energy shortage. ESCOM was also told the same by the Denton and the Deloitte report that they themselves commissioned. The cost of nuclear per kilowatt is R1.17 compared to a 62 cents for solar and wind. This nuclear cost does not take into consideration the high cost of disposing nuclear waste. Alternative and renewable energy uses technology whose costs continue to decline, whereas nuclear costs continue to increase. The health risks associated with nuclear are well known and well documented. It has become very clear that most of the government's programs are conceived not to meet people's needs and circumstances, but to open up space for political hyenas to engage in primitive accumulation. No government department, including CSIR, the Treasury, and the Department of Energy, is panting for the introduction of nuclear. The budget speech made no reference whatsoever to the nuclear build program that was so aggressively advanced in the State of the Nation address. And I suspect that that minister is going to pay for this. Having made these observations, the meeting decided as follows: that we will reject the nuclear option as a solution to the energy needs of our country, even if a crisis did exist. To note that in the case of South Africa, nuclear is simply not needed. Government is ignoring its own research institution, such as the CSIR, as well as reports that are now in the public domain from Denton and Deloitte, to condemn in the strongest terms the plans to build nuclear power plants in the deepest of the rural areas, where government is naively hoping that local communities will not protest in order to secure jobs that will not materialize. The destruction caused by nuclear Fukushima in Japan must be a key feature of our mobilization against the imposition of the nuclear build. To join the growing civil society coalition against the imposition of the nuclear build program by the government. To develop a simple pamphlet that can be distributed by unions to workers, explaining why the nuclear build program must be resisted at all costs. A mass education campaign has become very important to ensure that the public is not taken for a ride by government propaganda. To launch a mass-based program with the support of members of the coalition to resist the imposition of the nuclear build that has nothing to do with advancing the interest of the country, and to expose who will really benefit. To articulate and study the research conducted by NUMSA and others that demonstrate that jobs will not be created through nuclear power but through renewable energy. On the state capture and the crisis that we are in, and how do we stop that, we had a very interesting discussion, and we just highlight the few observations we made. That the steering committee noted that despite all the statements we have issued in the past, and notwithstanding the anti-xenophobia and anti-corruption campaigns we have included, which included a stay away by NUMSA and the demonstrations by hundreds of civil society formations throughout 2015 and 2016, corruption, mismanagement, unemployment, poverty, inequalities just continue as if nothing has happened. This crisis, this deepening crisis, includes the crisis in public education and healthcare. The social crisis is also deepening through drug abuse by mostly our young people, the increase in violent crimes, and high incidence of HIV and AIDS infection. the earlier debate on the nuclear bill program plus the Denton and Deloitte reports on Eskom fiasco, the examples of state capture, the Competition Commission report on the manipulation of currency dealing by the banks, and all of those that we can't even mention because of the long list that we will have to do. All of these things point in the direction that despite the best efforts of honorable people, we have failed to resist the move towards the establishment of a kleptocracy. We have to find a new way to assert our power and to turn the tide. The meeting decided to convene a broader meeting of civil society leaders to start consultation and a discussion on what is that we have done in the past that simply failed, and what is that we should be doing in the future to stop this. Doing nothing or just issuing statements of condemnation or even doing a small-scale mobilization has proven to be ineffective. We have to find a strategic approach, and a small predatory meeting, not a predatory, I like predatory highness. A small preparatory meeting took place on Monday, the 6th of March at the Operations Center to start the ball rolling. In terms of the Section 77 notice we issued in December, NEDLAC convened a Section 77 committee where the Federation was invited to engage the relevant government departments on the 6th of March on its application for a protected socio-economic strike to raise awareness on the plight of workers and transform an economy that works only for the wealthy minority into one that will be working for all of us, especially the workers and the poor. The correctness of our Section 77 notice demands, especially our main demand for jobs, is strengthened by the confirmation by the Statistics South Africa that the economy shrank by a 0.3% in the last year. On the national minimum wage, we have emphatically rejected the government's proposed 20 rands an hour. COSATU, the government and the bosses say yes to slave wages. We say no, but yes to a decent living wage and an end to poverty and inequalities. We also deplore the scandalous fiasco around the possible non-payment by SASSA of social grants to 17 million of the poorest South Africans on the 1st April, and demand that President Jacob Zuma, Minister Bathabile Dlamini, and the entire cabinet must resign following this outrageous saga and their defiance of the Constitutional Court ruling which condemned the government's contract with Net1. Finally, we also condemn the statement by the paranoid State Security Minister David Mahlobo that he wants now to regulate social media. This is yet another proof that we are moving towards not only kleptocracy, but also an authoritarian, predatory, kleptocratic state. The statement is issued by all of us. We are all ready here to answer your questions.